I think a lot of people are regretting, I think, not putting up opposition to when the Tories wanted to get rid, or at least when the Tories got rid of under Boris Johnson, of the Fixed Term Parliament Act. Now, what that essentially was this defined when there is going to be a general election. Currently, right now, because there is no Fixed Term Parliament Act, Rishi Sunak can call a general election whenever he wants, which is, well, honestly, part of his problem. Because if you have followed British politics, then you probably saw this very bizarre video floating around just very recently, over the past couple of days, of people dressed up in chicken suits, lining up outside number 10, all in a nice row with all letters. And I don't know if you were me, but I was just like, why are you all so grouped together? I know it's like, call a general election now, Rishi, but you're all, jumbled together. Imagine just typing that out and not putting any spaces in, and then going and having to look and stare at it for a moment, going, "What are they saying?" But yeah, that was something that annoyed me on that absolutely to no end. But this is something that has a bit of a precedent in British political history, especially, of course, with Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown, when he got elected, there were calls for him to call a general election, that there should be one, and he gained the moniker Bottler Brown because of it. And that was something that, going into the next general election, did hurt Brown quite a bit, him unable to call that. It was something that the Conservatives were able to point out to as an indecision maker, that, oh, you really don't want Gordon Brown making these important decisions. Well, now you've now got Chicken Rishi. Do you really want Rishi Sunak continuing to make these important decisions? And not only just that, bear in mind, last year alone in Parliament, there were only about 22 bills passed. Normally, we are at least 150, 160 bills a year. So we are currently living with very, very, very much a zombie parliament. So, given the fact that we have all this, one of the questions I think a lot of people will have themselves watching this video, and watching everyone else, and I think we need to sort of start spreading the message that if you want to get rid of the Tories faster, then there is no better option to put more pressure on to the Tories than, of course, the May general elections. Well, not the May general election, the May local elections, sorry. But the May local election is going to be very, very important. So, regardless of however you want to vote at the, well, of course, we want the non-Tories vote to sort of get out en masse. I would highly, highly recommend that you start to talk to people about what's going on in this particular local election. And I think that this could be a very, very significant campaign. I think it's something Labour should get involved with, the Lib Dems. Everyone should get out involved in this. I think some sort of campaign to go, hey, we are going to put such a massive pressure onto the Tories at this May local election that they are going to lose councillors, they're going to lose control of town councils, they're going to lose mayors, they're going to lose regional mayors. This is the type of thing that should, and I think really needs to be looked at. Because if you want to get the Tories out, and especially when you see people like, Goto and Goto now in the hashtags, then absolutely at the May local elections is your time to really get out. And as we've said before, May local elections, very, very low turnout. Historically, very low turnout for May elections. We've seen people be elected on just 300 votes in some areas. That's how much it can happen. And if you were to mobilize people, and you were to mobilize them in a general election style, and get them out to say, this is important. If you want a general election quicker, get out and vote in the May local elections. Deliver these defeats to the Tory party. Just make them actually realize and finally shake them loose that they are going to lose when they call a general election. Because now we know that there's, according to Rishi Sunak, he's ruled out having a May the 2nd local election, hence why it's gained the name Chicken Rishi. This now, of course, leaves the May local elections pretty much wide open. That this is why we should sort of really put a lot of pressure, because, like I say, not most average turnout for local elections is between 25 and 30%. That is very, very low. It is a very, very low turnout. Now, you look at general elections, and your average turnout suddenly then becomes well, it depends where you are in the country, because again, the average turnout for a general election is roughly around 60%. But if you could mobilize more people, that sort of almost that another 30% of people just go, well, actually, if you get out and vote at this particular May local election, and you you vote Labour, you vote your Lib Dem, etc., and you make sure that the Tories lose, and lose quite big at these local elections, then this is going to put huge pressure on Rishi Sunak. He's already under severe pressure at the moment. You've seen, of course, the story or the plot to crown Penny Mordaunt. That, I think, is just yet another attempt to put pressure on Rishi Sunak, especially this week. The Rwanda bill going to be probably the talk of this week, certainly in the Lords. They are not going to let it pass, as was passed in sort of the Commons. This idea and dream of seeing flights going off to Rwanda is going to be a non-starter, and we've talked about before, it's a policy that's never ever going to work. But there you go. So this is something, I think, the message we've got to start, I think, spreading, that if you want to get rid of them and you want to get rid of them faster, go out and vote in the May local elections. And one of the things I've always said, probably the most second important election happening next to the general election, certainly possibly this year, is, of course, the election of the Teesside mayor, Ben Houchen. Now, if he loses, this means that now we can have a potential Labour mayor in there, opening up the books, looking at what is going to go on in that Freeport. And we already know from that initial report that there are plenty of dodgy dealings going on in there that need looking into. So not only are you going to deliver a massive defeat to the Conservatives, but you're going to put in a Labour mayor or whoever, because they've all sort of campaigned for this, but let's just go with Labour. You put the Labour mayor in, all of a sudden he goes, right, we're going to have a proper investigation. What's been going on in this Freeport? All of a sudden, you now have this massive scandal that now will break loose about what's been going on in these Freeports, this Freeport in Teesside, and just the sheer corruption that has gone on there, because we know it's gone on. The report alluded to it many times, but as Michael Gove did, he narrowed the scope of the report. So, that report could not be examined in that way. That's not what they were allowed to look into. But people have looked at it and said, hey, look, you need to be going through this with a fine-tooth comb. And that, yet again, could become another big pressure point. So, yeah, start spreading the message. Start mobilizing people to get them out to vote for the May local election. Because if you can get people out, and sometimes it can take as little as 100 people turning out to a local election, and all of a sudden you can have a pretty big swing. So do get out and mobilize people to vote in these May local elections. And especially, of course, if you are in the Teesside Valley mayoralship, do get out and make sure you vote Ben Houchen out as well. So, as always, thank you very much for listening. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.